versus the human cost of hiring a makeup artist. So I think that depending on the complexity and the size of the budget, the OpenAI or the AI apps, they're going to have to work with content producers to uncover. I don't know that producers will be very open about that, because sometimes they're very protective of their budgets, but there's definitely a cost-benefit analysis. Is it less expensive to hire, somebody in wardrobe and makeup to do, to age an actress, have her on set right now, and whatever the below the line wages are, versus learning the technology to age someone and spending that energy to train people and the cost of it. But I think, in order to be forward thinking, as I had mentioned earlier, the learning and the training, that's always going to be time and energy spent of what you think it could look like in the future. Because clearly everything, when technology first hits, it's very expensive. As economies of scale grow, the costs go down. Competitive applications can come in, also driving down costs. So there's going to be a higher upfront cost for sure, in my opinion, versus what we have today. But if you want to think of the future, I think you need to learn those skills now.
Can I just add, because I think this is fascinating. Think about what she just said. She's talking about makeup, hair, all these things. Remember, Hollywood is a unionized environment. So your trade agreements, all of your collective bargaining, everything's done over a period of years, right? And so the industry protects itself. So now we have a makeup filter on TikTok that's as powerful as age a person 30 years, and you see TikTok influencers doing it every day. But they'll have a side by side of themselves as here I am as a young girl, here I am as a young woman in college, here I am as a young mother, and here I am as a grandmother, and it does it flawlessly and for free. Folks, we have business models that are colliding, right? So some of these things we're going to see exploration, and others we're going to, you see other areas. Show that, the next slide. I just want to show this one slide. So this is Sora, right? I think everybody in here should at least know what is OpenAI is attempting to do with Sora. Slide right after it. Think about this slide right here. This is digital art. And the thing about what the conversation we're having, whether it's a video game, whether it's music, whether it's art, whether it's a movie, a script, it's all an expression of creativity. So we want to protect these things, put walls up to monetize them. So now this is beautiful art that I can print out that I got basically by doing a voice prompt. I could say I want a basketball player who can dunk. I wrote the prompt out. I'm not going to read it up there, but this is a prompt, and the OpenAI creates the artwork based upon my prompt. Now that said, this has impact on our business. People that make a living around the world in art, right? In music. Can I say create me a hit song or whatever it is, and can it actually do it? I don't know. Music is very personal, right? But if you have the data, you might be able to do that. This is very personal, but it created it based upon a prompt. So what if I prompted something else? So where we're going is we're not going to solve it here, but we're definitely going to say, like, these are things to pay attention to. AI is not your bad friend. There are going to be some real powerful elements to it, but there are going to be some challenges, some trademark challenges, might be challenges, some monetization challenges. But just like Google, it's going to be around.
With that, I want to open it up to questions from you. I see one here. Hands up high if you have questions.
So, very interesting. I was listening to a podcast on my way out here thinking of the topics. Exactly, it was Adam Grant, who's an organizational psychologist at Penn, and Will I Am. And Grant then asks him, he says, well, how do you use AI to be creative? And he's like, oh, I don't think it's creative at all. And they distinguish between being actually created and regurgitating. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on this. I mean, I think this is certainly interesting, beautiful, but is it actually creative? Or is this sort of the sum of all the knowledge that I've copied, and is it sort of distilled from, I don't know, maybe it's distilled from some Michael Jordan pictures, I don't know, but curious to know your thoughts on that distinction.
Well, I think that definitely creators, they're unsettled, and, there have even been, articles and lawsuits about the use of AI on existing intellectual property and the infringement of that intellectual property. If you say, create a video or create a song, and then fill in the blank, you're training AI based on somebody else's intellectual property. Should they be monetized for that, the original creator? But, if you think about the scope of what AI can grab, out there on the internet, you can grab thousands of different kinds of IP. So, I think that's the struggle for IP owners and content creators. But what's interesting, an interesting aspect is a little bit tangential to your question. I was speaking with somebody who's at a major label and their perspective on AI. So they still believe in human created music, but they're using AI to find AI generated music that is a replication of their own artist. So they're using AI to detect copyright infringement. So AI can be used as a tool to protect your IP and to monetize your IP. If you use AI to find clips, unauthorized clips of your content, whether it's film, TV, or music, and you use that AI to notify you of copyright infringement. I mean, that was the big issue in 2009, 2008, when I was at Sony about copyright infringement, right? Replications of DVDs, stealing assets. That's really what, and that's what happened with music and Napster. So now we have the technology to identify it and say, you know what, you infringed on my copyright, take it down or pay me.
To answer your question is, I want to add to this because I think it's a really valuable question. If you go through the logical expression, in the 2010, 2012 area, we were building big screen televisions, high definition, HDR, 60-inch, 80-inch, and everything was about Blu-ray disc and high definition. And we were, the consumer was going to pay a lot more to have that beautiful picture in their home. Then we started watching behaviors of 13-year-olds and 12-year-olds, and they're watching Seinfeld or Friends or whatever they're watching, and they're watching it on their clunky the tiny little iPhone, even before the big one I use. You guys follow where I'm going? Sometimes people trade down based upon utility, right? They trade down in some cases, or they trade over. And so where I'm getting at is the prompt for this, I added here, the prompt for this artwork, right? Not that I like it or not, right? An expressive oil painting of a basketball player dunking depicted as an explosion of a nebula. And it just created this, and then the second version was created by an upgrade of the tool. Where I'm going is, it's not about perfection, it's not about whether it's perfectly creative. It is about if these tools become norm, they'll be part of our process, right? Right, and part of our culture. I can't tell you how many times I say Google it now, ridiculous how many times. Because Google's just a part of our vernacular, it's a part of what we do, a part of how we research things, right? Even though there's a lot of flaws with Google in some ways, we're gonna pull things up.
So I'm in the world of distribution. Sorry, I'm in the world of distribution. So you guys were talking about collapsing windows of distribution. And selfishly, I want to know, where do you guys see in television, in the lens of television more than movies, where do you see, I wrote it, what windows do you forecast to be the most important in the next 5 years?
Wait, can you ask that question one more time?
Yes. What windows of distribution do you forecast in the television content in the next 5 years? To be the biggest revenue drivers.
To be the biggest revenue driver,
Yes.
okay. Andy?
I mean, I guess this is a non-AI question,
Yeah.
but, I mean, obvious, well, I guess nothing's obvious, but, you know, the streaming services are where it's at. It doesn't seem to me that any other window, I mean, I guess I can't see how other windows, you could make an argument for any other window. It just seems to me that whether we're talking about the theaters or broadcast television, it's just pretty clear that all the energies right now are streaming and licensing, even to the point where you can even narrow it to not just streaming, but Netflix streaming, because all the other streamers are licensing to Netflix streaming. So I don't know if I can.
I would go further. I would say that it's gonna be about data. You're gonna say, look, it's about, greed is the wrong word to say, but optimizing monetization, right? So you're going to see the streaming windows are very important when it's gonna stay. However, you're gonna see people like trying to keep that theatrical window, right? And you know, all the studios are trying to get that window back. That's a very profitable window. Remember, there's a big difference if I'm Disney or Sony or Fox or even Netflix with their movies, or Apple's doing the Napoleon movie. There's a big difference seeing it theatrical to their artists and the people that are in the creative community. So they're gonna want that window, and that's it. So, but it depends on the data. If we can make money on that window, you'll see that window stay, you'll see it expand. If not, you're gonna see it collapse like you wouldn't believe, like we did during the pandemic. Those windows, like, right?
So was your question about film or television content, episodics?
Specifically television.
Okay, so with television episodics, I think, you know, what we're starting to see is a trend. Like 5 years ago, a streamer would pick up global rights in perpetuity. Now what we're seeing is maybe two streamers. One picks up domestic, and another streamer picks up worldwide to share the cost. You know, we could also see the evolution of it's not in perpetuity, or it's a license period of 10 years or shorter, because producers may want to monetize in other non-SVOD platforms, subscription platforms, things that are fast, right? Free ad-supported TV or AVOD, because that can also generate additional revenues from advertising. So I think we're still in the middle of what this transformation is going to look like, but it's starting to look like consumers want to spend less on all of these separate subscription models and going towards a fast model. So that's, yes, so that's an opportunity for additional revenue.
Nick's got the last question. Rapid fire. We're down to our last minute.
Thanks, Jay. I want to give 3 really quick examples and then ask a question really about the speed of adoption with AI. Example number 1, our company was featured in Wall Street Journal on Friday because we were the first company to create an AI avatar for a presidential candidate, and we employed a range of technologies behind that. Number 2, last year we created for McGraw-Hill 1,200 videos, equivalent to 56 feature-length movies for a new learning app. We couldn't have done that without a whole range of generative AI engines underneath the hood. Another example, we're piloting the ability to create a higher ed course with questions, course outlines, multimedia content, and so forth for the learner by hitting generate. Because we're chaining together multi-step prompts across many different engines to create that. And that's not restricted by unions or other protective classifications, organizations, and so forth that perhaps Hollywood is facing today. So my question is around the speed of adoption. Should we collectively here in this room be thinking that the speed of adoption of AI, given these and many other examples, Sora and so forth, we should be thinking that AI is coming much faster and maybe at an exponential rate rather than a linear rate, and should we be resetting to that speed of adoption from the technology that is out there?
Now, you're asking generally across all industries or specifically in entertainment?
Let's start with entertainment, given the forum here, but should we be really thinking about changing our perspective on the speed of adoption of AI and the impact it could have? Is it an exponential technology or a linear technology?
Okay, so I want to start with Andy again, and quick, because you teased something earlier about how there seem to be two camps at South by. So I'm taking it that at least one of those camps thinks that this stuff is happening fast.
Yeah, but I'll say something else that I said before, which is you cannot generalize about AI adoption, even within an industry or across industries. I think different industries and different things within an industry will be impacted at different rates. I know that's not the answer you want to hear, but I just can't generalize, sorry.
Yeah, I would say prepare for an acceleration, but we also have to have risk mitigation strategies. We don't want to infringe on copyrights. We don't want to introduce elements, you know, I work in banking, you know, AI-generated voice can create problems in banking if you're working with customers. So this kind of technology has to be approached with some thoughtfulness in terms of the risk you're introducing, depending on the industry.
Remember, in American law says that, you know, until, you know, you can prove there was harm, we allow for freedom of expression in our Constitution and in our First Amendment, right? So that, you know, there's a, you know, over protection of freedom of expression. So my expectation is that we're going to be watching heavily where the eyeballs are going, right? Where's the behavior going? You remember, the same thing happened, maybe less on steroids, but Google is probably a good benchmark. With, not Google, YouTube, part of Google, but YouTube was a good benchmark, where you started seeing people uploading their own videos with their music. And they're, you know, they're not making music, they're putting Michael Jackson on with their video. And then the Michael Jackson estate saying, wait a minute, we're you know, they're infringing upon, you got my point. That was a multi-billion-dollar lawsuit that had to get settled. I expect probably some nasty litigation over a period of time as we, you know, sort this out, but we're gonna go where the behavior goes, right? AI, you know, deep fakes are a real problem. You know, there's gonna be some real issues, but we're gonna have to figure that out regulatory-wise. Once the behavior becomes, you know, once we can prove there's harm up front, they're gonna allow the behavior to get explored and how we use these tools.
So we have to stop there. We're out of time, but thank you so much for joining us today.
Before you leave, a couple of announcements. Our next program is June 6th, and we'll be focusing on residential real estate as well as the economic outlook. The answer to the question about exponential adoption of AI, you can come to that